Everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is our bigger show where we show you some of the biggest and best.
That's how big they are.
They're so biggest.
They're the biggest.
Best books that are coming out this week, whether you come into the store and pick them up or head over to infinityflux.net and order them. We wanted to let you know what you can get. See, my train of thought has been thrown off its rails. But make sure to head over to infinityflux.net where you can buy these books that we are talking about while supplies last so you don't miss out on them. And let's get into this week because there's some good stuff.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. And there are several number ones this week, but we are going to start with the number 3 because it's just that good. Duke number 3, just as good as the first two. So awesome. If you've been reading the Energon Universe stuff, you're probably really excited for this. So in this one, the people that want Duke dead, and I'm trying not to spoil names and reveals and things like that, but there are people who want Duke dead, and they find out that he's not dead. He's being held captive in the pit. We saw that last issue. So they send another familiar character after him to finish the job. And if you know G.I. Joe and Cobra from growing up, you'll recognize his character.
Yeah,
and it's really cool to see them. So then it cuts to, Duke is locked up, and at the end of last issue, we saw that Baroness was there with him too. So they start to talking a little bit, and we get this nice little peek of her backstory. And it's not like a full origin, but it's just like a nice 2-page spread that gives you all the basics you need to know about who she is, how she grew up, and that kind of why she is the way she is now.
What point turned her into kind of what made her Baroness?
Yeah, it was like a great way to do an origin in a short period of time.
How she got the name, why they started calling her that.
And then the bad guys, led by that one character, and they bring some henchmen with them. They invade the pit. They launch a frontal attack on the pit because they want to take out Duke. And from there, it's just a really cool action scene, right? There's a lot of fighting and gunplay and explosions, and you see rock and roll, he's part of it, and Stalker, and it's just a big action set piece set in the pit. And I don't want to tell you anything else because I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending was really interesting. It makes me want to see how it's all going to play out.
Yeah,
just another super duper spectacular issue of Duke, of the Energon Universe, and I just can't wait to see where it all goes.
There's a lot of I don't know, it's interesting. The pacing of this is really good. It's like a lot happens, but also it doesn't feel like too much. It lets the characters really shine in this. And it's also interesting to kind of compare this with Cobra Commander, because, this is just basically about Duke surviving. Cobra Commander is definitely, if we're following their rise to power, pretty far ahead of where Duke is right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
This. But, great issue of Duke.
Yeah, it was awesome. So, we have our A cover right here. And then we have, this is our Shalvey variant. And then here is the 1 in 10 boss variant that we're selling for $10. And I believe that's a connecting with the other two 1 in 10s that came out for issues 1 and 2.
Okay, next up, I've got this giant one sitting here. This is the Savage Sword of Conan number 1. So, if you're familiar with, kind of how the things used to be with, you had Conan the Barbarian, the comic, and Savage Sword of Conan, the more magazine-size, black and white formatted issue. That's what they are returning to at Titan. So this is really cool because I feel like this could easily plug right into your box of Savage Sword. This is kind of it's got multiple stories in it. It's got kind of pinup issue pictures. It's got a short prose story in it. So to begin with, it's got a Conan story, Conan and the Dragon Horde, from John Arcudi and Max von Fafner. And that's a really fun story that is about Conan is not leading an army. He's just kind of like part of this army of mercenaries that is going to attack a fortress that is built on top of a gold mine. And all these, of course, these mercenaries want it. But they're really wondering, doesn't seem like this fortress is really fighting back. What's going on here? And it's full of twists and turns. There's this woman who is the only woman who is part of this army, and her specialty skill is using like a trebuchet catapult, and that is really interesting. There's twists and turns and betrayals and all of that in this, and some pretty surprising moments. But this is a fun first story in here. We also have an original prose story by Jim Zub, who is writing the main Conan book, or Conan comic. But this is, and it's only like a 2-page story, but it's really cool how they can squeeze one of those in there. The other big thing in this is we have a Solomon Kane story that is the art and the writing is done by Patrick Zurcher, and this is really cool because Solomon Kane, of course, is a bit more of a puritanical demon hunter, I guess you would say. This takes place on the eve before Halloween.
Oh, nice.
And a creature, a beast, rises up from the ground, seemingly for no reason. It's very, like, you don't see it clearly, but it feels a little like Swamp Thing looking, and starts terrorizing a small farm. And that's a farm that Solomon Kane has, basically like, I'm gonna help out around the farm if you'll give me some room and board for a little while. People start going missing, and it's up to him to track down this monster. Very like The Witcher.
Oh yeah.
Vibes for that one, which was really cool. But it's a really cool. It's a pretty large book, but it's only $6.99. But it is in black and white. It's kind of newsprint.
Yeah.
But just very much harkens back to the classic Conan days with Savage Sword.
Yeah, it feels just like the old school one. Looks like it.
Yeah. So I think if you're a Conan fan, you're gonna definitely want this. And if you've never really dipped your foot in it, this is a good entry because it does have those one-shot stories. Now, the Solomon Kane is to be continued, but the first Conan story is a one-and-done story, which I thought was great. You've got the other Conan book that's going on. It's got a longer storyline. This, you just get fun Conan adventures. But like the classic Savage Sword, this is a bit more mature as well. I feel like they can get away with quite a bit more because it's black and white.
Yeah.
But this is not for kids. This is the classic Savage Sword you've known. So really cool one here. This is our A cover. We also have some variants for this. So this is the Zafino variant. We've got this Max von Fafner variant. So that's your interior artist on the first story. And what does that look like? Maybe a dinosaur.
This looks like a dino.
And then we have the Virgin cover of cover A.
All right, so next for me is Spider-Punk Arms Race. This is the first issue in a new Spider-Punk miniseries. This is written by Cody Ziegler, who is the writer on Miles Morales Spider-Man and something else I can't quite remember.
He's going to be doing Deadpool.
That's what it is, yep. And the art is by Justin Mason. So this issue starts with a really cool fight between Spider-Punk and all of his like bandmates, like Captain Anarchy, right? And Ms. Marvel, Riot Heart, Daredevil. And they go up against this group of people called the Lizards, LZRDS, so all the vowels are moved. But it's the Lizard, it's Sauron, it's Stegron, and there was one other lizard character I didn't recognize.
They mentioned Vulture, too.
Oh, maybe that's who it was. Yeah, maybe it's Vulture, but as a lizard person. So it's cool little intro to this new story, just like this cool fight scene between those two groups. But then it moves to the main story where Justin Hammer is trying to sell a group of potential investors on his new Sentinel Slayer. So, in 616, we've had the Spider Slayer, and obviously there's Sentinels, but this is the Sentinel Slayer. And we see that he's working with Doc Ock, who isn't, it's funny, he's not much of a fan of Justin Hammer. He's, he doesn't think much of him. And they test out one of those. Oh, I made in my notes Spider Slayers. It should be Sentinel Slayers. They test out one of those Sentinel Slayers by sending it after Spider-Punk and his friends. And that's a whole other big battle, like right in the middle of the streets. But after the fight, we see that Doc Ock may be up to something even more sinister. He may, he's working with Justin Hammer, but he might have plans of his own that he's working on off to the side. So
yeah. And it's arms race, like
Doc
Ock arms. Yeah.
I didn't even put that together till
Yep.
just now. But yeah, you're exactly right. So yeah, just another Spider-Punk series. If you enjoyed the last one, you're probably going to enjoy this one. If you're a Spider-Punk fan, then you might want to check this out. So we have our A cover right here. We got some cool variants too.
And it does also have a nice, if you're not
That's
familiar
right.
with his origin, it does a really nice, like, 2 or 3 page origin
Yeah.
for, because I didn't know how he got, what his, when or where he got bitten by his
Right.
spider and all that, and it shows you. And I thought that was pretty cool.
And there's a backup story too, right?
Yeah, and there's a backup story with
With-
some of the other Punk characters.
That's right. Yeah, so that was cool to see them too. So that was our A cover. We have this Kari Andrews cover, which I love. I love his work. We have this really nice Todd Knock window shades variant, just jamming out. I'm sure his neighbors are loving that.
What a Punk world that's
Yeah,
just.
well, that's true. Yeah,
Loving it.
there's this really cool foil cover. I didn't get the artist name on that one, but it's nice foil. And then there's this 1 in 25 Maria Wolf variant that we're selling for $25. That is Punk right there.
Well, next up for me, keeping on the spider train, kind of. I feel like now
Sort of,
Venom is
kinda,
kind of his
yeah.
own entity. We have What If Venom. So this is interesting. So this is by Jeremy Holt and Jesus Hervis does the art. And what I'm used to with these What If issues is very standalone. Like, what if, this person got this power? What if this
Yeah.
person got this power? This is actually one story, and it's to be continued. So this is more of a what if epic story that I really like. It's kind of refreshing that you can follow this a little bit more. So this actually starts back when Eddie Brock was about to kind of during the original him getting bonded to the symbiote.
Yeah.
He goes into a church, and before he does something pretty serious to himself, in the original, the Venom symbiote attaches to him, but in this, it actually starts a little bit before that. And Jen Walters is working in an office. She's She-Hulk at this point. She's she never transforms back from She-Hulk. But she has to stay late for work one day, and on her way home, she actually witnesses this happening to Eddie Brock, and she's like, she reaches in and stops him before he can do anything, and the symbiote notices her and basically says like, "Oh, I can tell this host would have a lot of rage." And so instead of bonding with Eddie, who basically just like screams and runs away, and she's like, "Well, that's typical," bonds with Jen Walters and becomes a symbiote She-Hulk. And she ends up going on some. Originally, she has one of those moments of like she passes out, she wakes up and doesn't remember what happened. Oh, it's just a dream. But actually, there's been these reports of this monster version of She-Hulk rampaging the city. But actually, she's a good enough person that she starts being heroic with this. But she still has the voice of Venom in her head, kind of telling her what to do. But she's so much of a hero, she can kind of use it to do better things. But it's kind of overwhelming her. So one night, she's actually attacked by Sabretooth, which is a very weird, like, I did not
didn't
see
see that
Sabretooth
coming,
coming
yeah.
into this. She's in Central Park and is attacked by Sabretooth, but it seems like he's actually trying to get a bit of the symbiote for something. But this plays into what it seems to be the larger story they're telling as other characters start to appear that also seem to be hunting the symbiote, or She-Hulk wearing the symbiote. I don't want to give away who it is, but it looks like that's going to kind of lead into the next issues of this. I'm guessing it's going to be every issue where it's a through line story, but we're going to see the symbiote kind of see somebody else and be like, "Oh, I need to go to them."
Yeah.
And it's going to spotlight that character, because where this one leaves off, we kind of see who it's going to go to next, which is really, really cool. So
I do wonder what that'd be like. What would make it want to leave She-Hulk?
I know it feels like it started at the top, but she's got a great costume design. You'll see on some of the variants as well. But there's 2 or 3 characters that show up at the very end that really make this super interesting, and where I really want to see where it goes next. You can kind of get an idea, I think, from that cover, maybe who they will bond with, but we'll have to see. So we've got some great variants, starting with probably my favorite. This is the John Boy Myers variant, which of course is homaging Sensational She-Hulk. And that's really what her costume looks like in this, and her face kind of is still green, but she gets the Venom eyes. We also have, this is the Chad Harden variant, of course. This is an homage. What issue is this? Amazing
316, Amazing 316, yeah.
Spider-Man 316. We have a black blank sketch cover to get somebody to draw maybe with a white pen, a crazy Venom on there. Then we have this 1 in 12 Inhyuk Lee variant we're selling for $15, which is super cool. And we have this 1 in 10 design variant. And that's what she looks like in the book.
That's a cool design.
So I actually really like those. Sometimes I get a little burnout with the what ifs and all of that, but this one I think because it feels like, okay, this is a what if world, but we're gonna stay with it for a little while.
Yeah.
Instead of just like how many different ones can we do?
All right, so next for me is Women of Marvel. This is a one-shot anthology book just featuring different stories, like one and done stories of various female characters. The first one is written by Gail Simone and the artist by Lydia Rosero. And this one's really fun because there's this cosmically powered being called the Might Mitigator, and he plucks various heroes out of from where they are, but not just like takes them all at once. Like he plucks them from random points in time as well. So he takes like the Silver Age Sue Storm and the Silver Age Jean Grey, but then the modern day Captain Marvel and She-Hulk and just all these different female characters.
When he pulls them out, it's like they never existed. So the Fantastic Four suddenly turned to the Fantastic Three, and the characters can't remember why they're standing there doing something and all of that, which is really fun.
Yeah. And he says he did it because he can. They said, "Why did you do this?" He's like, "Because I can." And he's doing it so that there'll be a world where, he's like, if you guys aren't here, then there's going to be a world where Spider-Man doesn't lose someone to a tragic fall. Wanda won't say no more mutants and that kind of thing. So there's interesting ramifications to those characters not being there. But then they fight him, and so he'll lose his concentration. They all go back. But it was just a really kind of fun, a little bit meta story, which is really cool. There's a Scarlet Witch story. There's a really cool Black Widow story with some really good art, where she breaks into a highly secured place. I don't want to give it away, but not for the reason you might think. There's a Squirrel Girl story. There is a there's kind of like what looks like a Wikipedia entry about Monet St. Croix and like how she got started and everything. And then there's a story called The Future is Here. And this is where Mr. Negative has kidnapped Madam Web, and he wants to force her to show him his future. But instead, she kind of shows him just the general future, and it's kind of like a timeless page because you get all these little previews of things to come soon. Like we know Spider-Gwen is getting a new series in the 616 universe.
Yeah, it shows her fighting Kraven and but there's some. It took a minute to first you're like, oh, these are all it's just showing characters. But then when you start looking at them, you're like, oh no, this is actually upcoming stuff.
Yeah. There are a couple panels of some X-Men related stuff that give us a teeny tiny little hint as to what's to come. Just some really cool stuff. It was all really well done, and made me want to read all those stories on that one page.
Yeah, and they actually mention in the opening thing, they name who is going to be the leaders of 2 different X-Men teams. I won't give away who it is, but that's a pretty big deal. They say, more news coming as, probably Free Comic Book Day, I think is where we're going to get a lot of that in the X-Men Free Comic Book Day issue.
Yeah.
But the little thing, there's a little sneak peek of Weapon X-Men and one of the Wolverine characters that's from that in there. Black Widow in her symbiote suit. So I thought that was really interesting, especially for these kind of yearly the Women of Marvel thing. This one felt like this has got a lot of meat on it. This has some real story in it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, just a really cool anthology book with some cool stories. So we have our A cover right there, and then we got some cool variants. This is the Orzu variant. This is the Casagrande variant with America Chavez. I wish she had been in it. Maybe she was in that first story and I didn't see her.
I think she was. I think she was in the background.
And then this is the Basil Dua variant.
That was cool with that gun. Okay, next up, I've got a one-shot tie-in to the Fire and Ice series. It's based off of the classic animated movie. This is really cool. So this is also written by Bill Willingham, who has been doing the main Fire and Ice series for Dynamite. The art in this is by Gabriel Di Carlo. And I actually really like this. So I only have read, I think maybe only the first 2 issues of the Fire and Ice book are out at this point. So we're not too far in the series before we're getting this one shot based on Tigra. But this is kind of the princess character from the movie. And in this, to shore up an alliance, Tigra's father wants her to marry someone from another kingdom because their armies are really dwindling in their fight between the Fire Kingdom and the Ice Kingdom and all of that. So he kind of wants to be like, okay, we can consolidate some power by having you marry somebody. But of course, she does not like this, and she escapes out the window one night. And the king puts out a word to all the different kingdoms. It basically says, uh, if you can find my daughter, in not so many words, you can marry her as well. But they say that he doesn't specifically say that because he's got to check out who it is first because they could be somebody terrible, and he doesn't want to make any promises that they can marry her. But she, of course, can take care of herself. She goes out into the wilderness. She's confronted by kind of dinosaurs and all of that. But there is a knight that comes to her rescue. But when she takes his helmet off, uh, there's quite a surprise there. Just a really fun issue. There's a lot of humor. It feels like I'm a big Bill Willingham fan from Fables. This has a very Fables vibe to it. Even the chapter titles, there's like 3 chapter titles in this, and they're all worded the same way Fables chapters are worded. It's like the one where in which we find the whatever. It's written like that, and I was like, oh, this feels very nicely familiar.
So it sounds like a title to an episode of Friends.
Yeah,
The one where this happens
the
and that
one where they got
happens.
the turkey on their head.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought this was really good. Even if you're not like, there's only been, I believe, only one Fire and Ice movie and only a couple issues that have come out after that. I feel like this is a place you can jump in for a really fun character, a really fun adventure that feels classic and fantasy and all of that. And you might find a new world you're interested in. So this is our A cover. I believe this is a Dan Panosian A cover, which is really nice. We also have a Megan Hetrick variant. I always really like her art. And we have a 1 in 10 Panosian Virgin variant for that we're selling for $10.
All right, so next for me is Giant Size Fantastic Four. This is, I think it's just the second giant size book I think we got.
Second or third.
Yeah, second or third. We had the Miles Morales one, and this is just a one shot or one shot, one and done story. Where the Fantastic Four. Oh, it's written by Fabian Nicieza with art by Crease Lee. And in this one, Reed Richards and Stingray, which when's the last time we saw him? They are actually in the ocean floor studying plant life to see if they can use it for a fuel source. And they find a huge, like centuries old door. So they decide to open it. That's because that's what you do when you find a big door,
Yeah,
right?
of course. You're not going to leave that closed.
Right, yeah. And inside they find a being called Natlus, who is a descendant of both Atlanteans and Lumerians. And of course, he attacks them, and the rest of the Fantastic Four show up to help. And then, they do fight for a while before Reed realizes that not everything is as it seems with this character. Maybe they're not all bad, and maybe they're misunderstood. I'm not really sure. I can't really tell you that. But just a fun, like I said, one and done story, introducing us to this new character. I don't know if it's spelled Natlus. Maybe it's Natlus or Notlus. I'm not sure. But we might be seeing him again, and he's got a really cool design too. And it also includes a reprint of Fantastic Four number 33, which was a big issue just featuring Fantastic Four, obviously, and Namor.
Okay.
So it has that nice old school reprint in there as well. So yeah, just another fun one and done story of Fantastic Four and their nautical adventures. And Stingray, get it for Stingray,
Yeah.
right? And this is the only cover we have. I don't think we have any variants for this one.
So all the giant size, at least so far, are not connected to each other.
That's right. Yeah, they're all just their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just telling one
and
story.
They're not really connected even to their like current ongoing series.
Not really. There was hints of there was like little shades of connectivity in the Miles Morales one, but you could read it on its own. Yeah.
Okay, well, next up for me, I've got Wolverine issue 44. So this is part 4 of Sabretooth War, and it's not looking good for Wolverine and friends as the kind of the the character dossier or whatever in the very beginning keeps getting more and more red X's over characters' faces as more of Wolverine's partners and a few of the multiversal Sabretooths are taken out. Well, in this one, if you remember last time we saw Wolverine, he was armless and legless in a crazy rage running down a hallway.
Not to be confused with Legolas from
Yes.
Lord of the Rings.
This one, he is getting sewn back together because they need to track down one of the Sabretooths that seems to still be nearby the X-Force facility. And it's I don't know if he's got a technical name, but he's in a universe where Sabretooth became Captain America. I guess it has to do with maybe like the weapon.
But isn't he Canadian?
I don't know if Sabretooth is technically.
I thought he was.
But maybe it has to do with like the weapon H program or whatever, because Captain America sometimes is part of that. So maybe they used Victor Creed first for that. I'm not sure. But that one is still around, so it's up to Wolverine and Domino to track him down. And you've got some great fight scenes here that are, they tease this as like the bloodiest, most violent Marvel comic ever. And there's some of that. Part of it's just seeing someone sew Wolverine's limbs back on. That's pretty terrible in of itself. But they're going to attempt to capture this Sabretooth to find out what his master plan is. Because it's more than just Sabretooth wants to kill Wolverine. It feels a little bit more like there's more vengeance in it. There's more. He's doing stuff to really mess with Wolverine and kind of like pick off people around Wolverine before finally taking Wolverine out. And they're going to find out what that might be in this issue. So another fun issue of Wolverine as we're getting kind of to the wrap up of this series. What, maybe issue 50 is the last issue?
So.
Have
they announced that for sure?
I think so.
Okay.
I know all the other X books are ending, and I think Wolverine is ending at 50. But this was a fun issue. Definitely, we're right in the middle of this story, so not a great jumping on point, but if you've been enjoying it, it continues to be a fun ride, and we are all out of the variants for this one.
All right, so next for me is Invincible Iron Man number 15, and this one was super awesome. So this is the first appearance of the Mark 72 armor, the one that's made out of Mysterium that he's been working on for several issues now, as well as something else that he's been working on, first appearance of that as well. And it's not just like right at the end, like he puts it on and fights in it and everything. Like it's really, really cool. The issue starts with Tony and Emma sort of taking on the assassin that Orcus sent after them 1 or 2 issues ago. And Emma is able to hold it off while she goes diamond form and is able to hold it off while Tony goes and gets that new armor. And we learned something really interesting about Mysterium that I don't know if we knew before. But when I saw it, I was like,
some properties.
It's really strong.
Okay. Well, I assumed it was very strong.
Yeah. So we learned something about that. And like I said, the new armor is made all of that. And then when Tony takes off, after that battle, he takes off for the final showdown between him and Fei Long, and all the Stark Sentinels. And we do see what the real purpose is of those ships that Forge and Riri made last issue. And I was guessing, like when they were doing that, I was like, I wonder if it's blank, and it was. So I was right. No, but I'm sure it's pretty easy guess. But just a super duper awesome issue, really action packed, and I cannot wait. The new armor is awesome. I don't know why War Machine's on the A cover because he's not in this at all. And this isn't the new armor. But yeah, the showdown with Iron Man and Fei Long next issue is going to be awesome. So a super solid issue, and that is our only cover. It's
continuing past this too. Like they haven't announced this is ending.
Right.
Yeah,
not yet.
It's interesting because it's so tied in with what's going on the X stuff. It'll be interesting to see how, as the X stuff wraps up, how does Tony Stark's place in it, end up.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have any variants here, so this is the only cover we have.
And if you're a fan of War Machine, he's not in it, but they gave him the cover.
Yep.
Okay, next up, I've got Amazing Spider-Man issue. This is also 44. Yeah, it's amazing how so many of the Marvel books are all kind of. I think even like the Star Wars books, like Vader was like issue 44, and they're all keeping together. But of course, this is our last issue of the gang war story. I think there might be a like, you know, gang war fallout issue or some like a bookend to it.
Yeah.
But this is where like that big fight that's happening in Central Park in the previous issue is continuing this one. We saw in the last one that Tombstone ripped the wings off of
Beetle.
Beetle because he's like, I'm taking you basically I'm taking you out of this fight.
Yeah.
And so now it's him trying to basically like I'm gonna take over the crime because I know I can handle it and I don't want any of these other people to do it. So, but we do get some fun stuff like we have Spider Boy and Jackpot enter the fight in this. So it's cool to see like Spider Boy show up and Jackpot and kind of interacting with all the other heroes that are in this big fight. But there is at the end a new crime lord of New York. You know where it's like throughout this series it's been like the map, like the yellow and black map, and it said who has each territory. At the end, there's one name, and it's the entire city. So pretty interesting there. I'm not sure, how that's going to affect what's going forward with Spider-Man, but great to have this finally wrapped up with issue number 44. We also have some variants for this, so I love this one. This is the what are these called? The Peter Parker.
Yeah, Life of Peter Parker.
The Life
I
of
think.
Peter Parker. Yeah. Just a really nice cover there.
All right, so next for me is Green Arrow number 9, and this was super good too. So I think this it's a good precursor for the upcoming Absolute Power event. If you're wanting to bone up on some books to read before that, this would be a great one to get because Amanda Waller has taken control of the Hall of Justice. It's now the Hall of Order. We saw that I think in Beast World, right?
Yeah.
And she's taking everything in there, extra costumes, tech, vehicles, and stuff, and she's moving it to a secret location. We don't know where that is or why. But Green Arrow breaks into the Hall of Order in an effort to find out where Roy Harper is. He's been looking for Roy for the last few issues, but he's captured. It's not too long before he's captured. So he and Waller start to talk, and it's really cool because he's like, Waller, what are you doing? He's like, I've worked with you years ago, and you have never gone this far before. And she just states that, after what I saw on Earth 3 from way back in that Suicide Squad series.
Wow, yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and, based on what I saw with Beast World, I think metahumans are a threat, and they got to be dealt with, basically. So she makes him an offer or a deal. She offers him a deal, that he came for, and it's very interesting, and it relates back to a story from several years ago, and it might not be what you think, and it could be how she intends to execute her plan, what she wants to do in the Absolute Power event. So, when we found out in that event she wants to steal the powers of all the heroes and the villains, I was like, how's she going to do that? Well, maybe what she asked Green Arrow to do in this, that might be how she plans on doing it. I still don't quite know how, but it's all tied together somehow. And while all that's going on, Connor Hawke goes to Corto Maltese to talk to another character that we haven't seen in a long time, but that Green Arrow fans will be very familiar with. So that was really cool too. So this issue was awesome. I loved it so much. It's just great. I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait to see how it's kind of like a stealth lead-in to Absolute Power, which I think is really cool. So there's our A cover right there, and then we have this 1 in 25 Tony Chastain variant that we're selling for $25 with Black Canary. She's not in this story, by the way.
She's got hair for days.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how, when we saw the announcement about the Absolute Power, that it seems like all books are somewhat leading to there.
Yeah.
With the Superman stuff, with the Wonder Woman stuff, with the Batman stuff, and Green Arrow and Titans. It's like they've very naturally found a way that doesn't feel intrusive, not messing with those books' main story, but found a way that there's a pathway to that event through pretty much any of the titles.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool, a very inventive way of doing it. Okay, next up, I've got Star Wars Thrawn Alliances issue number 2. This continues to adapt the Timothy Zahn novel by the same name. This is really cool because it continues the back and forth between the time Anakin met Thrawn and were on a mission to rescue Padme from this planet, and then later on when Vader has to team up with Thrawn, and kind of the power dynamics that are there. Thrawn is not very nice to Anakin. He basically there's a part where they have a fight in a cantina, and Thrawn's not from this galaxy. He's from outside of this known galaxy. But he's like, oh, so you're one of those Jedi? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, we have stories about those. We have the stories about them and the Sith. And the Sith is like, kind of thought you were going to be one because the Sith seem to be like the ones who are better at stuff, and so I guess you're a Jedi because you're not very good at any of this. And it's like, oh, that's a mean diss from Thrawn. But they continue to search for in the Vader timeline what the disturbance in the Force that the Emperor felt, and there may be something there that can even stop Vader in his tracks, like literally stop him from moving. That was pretty surprising. So if you haven't read the book, this will all be a surprise to you. I haven't read the book, so this is still quite the page turner. I really enjoyed it. So Thrawn Alliance is number 2. Just great stuff with some really fun characters, kind of trying to outsmart each other, kind of prove why they're the better leader. So that is our A cover. We also have this Raza variant. We have this Ken Lashley variant for Black History Month. And we have this 1 in 25 Lionel Francis Yu variant that we're selling for $45.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
All right, next for me is Avengers Twilight number 3, and this is the best issue of this miniseries so far. I love this one. Steve Rogers and the tech genius of these Defenders, this group that he's fallen in with, a guy named Tyler, they head out to the raft to rescue what's left of Tony Stark. The raft now being used as James Stark, Tony's son, being used as his research facility instead of a big prison like it used to be. And they are able to get to Tony, or what's left of him. But when they get there, they're forced to face off against James in his new armor that he built himself. So he built himself an Iron Man armor. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And then when that happens, the rest of the issue is a big, awesome fight, and there's more than one surprise during the fight. The very end of that fight is very, very awesome. So this, like I said, this was the best issue yet. Things are really starting to move forward, and things are really starting to come to a head. Although I think it's a 6-issue series, so we've still got a ways to go. But this was awesome. It was super cool. So if you've been reading this, definitely pick this one up because it was so good. We have a couple of variants here. This is our A cover right here. And then we have, I believe this is Daniel Acuna as well. Kind of almost looks like the same cover, really. We have this really fun Sarah Pacelli variant, which she's homaging Frank Miller. It even says that in the bottom cover, homaging the Dark Knight Returns Lightning Bolt cover. There is this Taryn Clark variant. And then there is this 1 in 25 Phil Noto variant that we're selling for $25.
Now, have they said yet how far in the future this is? Because it looks like Miss Marvel is maybe a bit older, but not older.
I mean, yeah, Steve's old. Miss Marvel, she's an adult now. So it's not like super duper far in the future because she's still alive, an adult, but she's not super old like Steve Rogers is. She's just grown up now.
I know that was kind of a thing in the first one. It's kind of hard to tell because Steve ages at a different rate and all that. Yeah. Okay, next up for me, we've got a Resurrection of Magneto number 2. This is really interesting. There's so many of these Fall of X tie-in books. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how are they all playing a part in this, or where are they all going to culminate? Because in this we have Magneto, who is kind of in a mutant afterlife. They described it, and it was kind of the way they could bring them back from the dead. It was like this placeholder type place, but it definitely feels kind of like a hellish landscape. Magneto in this, whereas the first issue did not have much Magneto in it. It was mostly Storm looking for a way to get to Magneto wherever he is. This one is Magneto, and he is basically like crawling through fire. He doesn't have any eyes, but I guess he can still see. And there's this wall, this kind of silver wall that has names on it of all the people either he has killed or have died basically in his name. Oof. And for Magneto, it's a big wall. Yeah. It's multiple walls, really. and they start. I guess they're kind of metal because they start like flying off of him because of his abilities, and he sees the names on him, and he's like, "Oh, this was someone who died." They're like, when I did this, I forgot what the like one of them was like a ship that he sunk when something was going on, but they're all tied in with like the history of Magneto. You can be like, oh, that was during that storyline. That was that storyline. But he's kind of having to come to terms with basically like seeing the names that his actions have caused. Even Toad, who because it says people who died in the name of Magneto. Uh, Toad basically took the fall for
I didn't know Toad was dead.
for Magneto one time, and his name is up there and everything. And Storm has to come to him and kind of pull him out of this place, and it's a really nice flip around where you see what might be able to bring Magneto back from these horrors that he is seeing again. So I thought it was a really interesting issue. It's kind of a little bit slower pace. There's no big fight scenes or anything. You do see some flashbacks of fights, but I'm interested to see what role Magneto will play. I mean, I think he's going to get resurrected in this, but when he gets resurrected, he may be like pretty much a good guy if this is thing. There's the other thing I forgot to mention in this. So before they mentioned this key that he has, let's see, what is it called? Um, the key to the doorway to judgment and purification, and it shows how he acquired this key. He was on a mission with Namor, and this like sea witch siren thing gave him this key, and they're like, turn it, you can turn it at any point, but I'm not going to tell you what it does, but it'll never leave your person. And even as Magneto's like in this afterlife, he's like, I feel the weight of the key.
Hmm.
And so Storm might convince him to turn that key, and what doorway will it open? And I feel like that's the next issue. So
Interesting.
really, really weird.
See, there's workarounds now that the Krakoan resurrection thing doesn't work anymore. There's workarounds.
Yeah, there's
just go find a
workarounds.
key in the afterlife.
Yeah.
It's easy.
But no variants for that one as well.
Wow, it's a small variant week. Like our
It
box for
is.
variants was pretty small, so there's
Yeah.
a few more we don't have any for. All right, so next for me is Punisher number 4. Now I didn't know this, but this I believe is the last issue of. I guess this was a mini. Like I didn't even quite know that it was a mini series.
I don't think they ever really said out loud that it was a mini series.
Like it, because it wraps up, and then I looked ahead. I couldn't find like an issue 5 or whatever. That's not to say there won't be a new miniseries with this Punisher at some point. But as far as this goes, I'm pretty sure this is the end right here. And it was definitely left open for more. So if they do more, there it's definitely it'll definitely be in a good place. But the organization known as Jigsaw, which we learned about at the end of last issue, they have targeted a peace summit between Sincaria and Bagalia, and they use Fearmaster's fear toxin. I know that sounds like Scarecrow, but his fear gas that we saw last issue. They use that fear gas on everybody at that peace summit, all the diplomats from those two countries, and of course they all get violent. They start going after each other, and their goal is to start a new war between those two countries. But the Punisher shows up to stop him. He comes in right at the last minute and has to save the day. And it's cool to see the new Punisher sort of take on the new Jigsaw, even though the new Jigsaw is more like an organization than a person. There is still a guy at the top. So there's a big fight there. But yeah, just wrapping up this first initial introductory series to this new Punisher. And if you got the first 3, don't miss this because, like I said, this is the end. That is our A cover right there, and we have one really cool variant. I like this one a lot. This Dan Jurgens Marvel 97 variant. Remember when Punisher had the ponytail? That was pretty crazy.
He needs to let his hair down, just let it flow.
Yeah, just let it flow. That'd be awesome.
And that's it for me. So you've got another one.
I got a couple more. I have Immortal Thor number 7 right here. And this kind of like a part 2 to the last issue because Loki and Thor continue to revisit a story from their youth like they were doing last issue. It's kind of like they're reliving their memories, but they're also like walking through it. It's like they're experiencing it again.
It's a God thing.
Yeah, it's Loki's all doing it right now. But in this one, they revisit the story of their youth when they went to Utgard Hall and faced off in a series of trials against Utgard Loki. And some of those trials are actually pretty funny. Like, it's not a slapstick comedy book, but they're pretty fun and kind of goofy. Um, but a few of the details have changed from when they from when it originally happened in the very first time. They're even Loki's even like, he's like, no, I thought your name was so and so, but now you're saying
Mhm.
it's this. And I feel like that is hinting at the upcoming Rocks on
Oh,
Thor
yeah.
book. There's a little bit there
Some
because
editorial
yeah,
changes.
because he mentions that somebody else is pulling from this magic that is and changing details of the past, and so more to come on that. But yeah, just a continuation of the issue from last month. We have this really cool. Oh, we have this A cover, Alex Ross, obviously, which is
Beautiful.
really good. We have this Baldion variant. Yeah, that's one of the Marvel '97
Yep.
variants. And then, oh my gosh, the Rod Reese Beta Ray Bill. That is awesome. I hope that's the one that I pre-ordered. I can't remember, but I really like that one. So that
Is
is
Vader
super
a villain
cool.
in it at all?
No,
Nah.
no. And then just a couple more, just super quick. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 17. Just wanted to let you know that this one is out this week. Gang War is over, but he does face off against Rabble. I don't know if he did he face off against Rabble's. Rabble's going through some things right now. But this is the issue before number 18, which is also Legacy number 300. That we talked about on Comics from the Future a couple weeks ago. So preparation for that. And just wanted to let you know also about Detective Comics number 1082. Getting closer to the end of Ron V's run, the Gotham Nocturne story. I did not get a chance to read this one, so I can't really tell you what's going on in it. But I just want to let you know if if you're buying Detective, but it's not on your pull list, then this one is out this week as well.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to mention too, real quick. I did have another one. Hack
Hmm.
Slash Back to School number 3, by Zoe Thorogood. This one's really cool, and the team of slasher slayers from the school are going up against this person who is very Junji Ito, as they
Hmm.
are a kind of a mad scientist who creates spider people hybrids, but that just turns into like these people with weird like double faces and mouths and legs and stuff. So super creepy one there. But it's a little bit of a lighter week.
Yeah, and this week skewed heavy Marvel too. Like there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of DC. Like it just sometimes weeks just fall weird.
Yeah.
Like they just go one way or the other.
Yep. But if you want some of these books, head over to infinityflux.net where you can order them while supplies last right now. There is some big ones this week, like we talked about at the top of the show. So don't miss out on those. Don't miss out on Duke. Don't miss out on Savage Sword of Conan.
Yeah.
Some really great ones. So head over there, check out all the variants and all the other books that came out this week. And join us for our show coming up on Wednesday. We'll be going over the books that you can pre-order by this weekend so you don't miss out on any of the comic goodness. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time,
See
see
ya.
ya.